A few weeks ago, a newer believer at my church group asked a very interesting question. How do I feel God? Coming into the faith, he had surrounded himself with strong Christians who constantly told him about these times that they felt God tell them to give money to a charity, pray for a homeless person, or spark a conversation with a stranger. He craved those feelings, but what does that even really mean? His question really struck something deep in my heart because I know I've felt God tell me to do something multiple times. But how do I know that it was God and not just something that I came up with myself? These convictions are subtle. They creep into your head and you start to wonder who is speaking to you. And I've run from these convictions way too many times to count. When God tells me to buy a homeless guy a sandwich or to tell the lady behind the front desk at my gym that Jesus loves her. Excuses come into my mind as fast as the initial thoughts, and I get out of that situation as quickly as possible. Most of the time, it will be these subtle nudges, and it's important to understand them and be willing to act in the moment. In James 4:17 says, "So whoever knows the right thing to do and fails to do it, for him it is a sin." And I can't overstate the importance of these small opportunities. God works in mysterious ways, and you have no idea how he will use you. Sometimes your purpose in those moments is just to be a blessing for someone else. Sometimes it is to plant the seed for curiosity about Jesus. Sometimes, and mostly every time, you will find the small act of obedience to be as much a blessing to you as it is to the other person. Recently, I heard a message that was titled, "Obedience That Doesn't Make Sense." The pastor spoke of endless examples in the Bible where people were obedient when it made absolutely no sense at all. Noah built a boat when there was no sign of a flood. Moses walked into Pharaoh's temple and told him to free all of his slaves. And Jesus told the lepers to show themselves to the priests while they were still diseased. And that is when it hit me. Those examples and countless others in the Bible show a common theme about these acts of obedience. Every time, it seemed impossible for any good to come of it, but God worked supernaturally to create an incredible solution. Is anything new about today? When God tells me, go tell that guy behind the counter that God hasn't forgotten him, I come up with every excuse not to do it. I think things like, that's too awkward, or he's gonna think I'm a weirdo, or that's probably not even the message that he needs to hear right now. Or I argue with God and say, I don't even know what to say. And I used to say no to all of these nudges or convictions or whatever you want to call them, until there were two that I couldn't ignore at all. First, I felt a conviction so strong that I instantly knew that it was God. November 2023, God was telling me to get baptized, and it was the first time in my life after 10 plus years of being a Christian that I had felt God speak to me in that way. But it was undeniable, so of course I obliged and I got baptized. And the next time that I felt that conviction and instantly knew that it was God was July of 2025. I prayed for God to take people out of my life that weren't meant to be there anymore, and after praying that over a few weeks, he certainly answered. But that wasn't all he had planned for me. I truly heard God telling me, Joey, you're not unhappy because people need to be taken out of your life. You're unhappy because you need to get out of your comfortable life here. So a month later, I packed my things and moved 1,500 miles away down the East Coast. It's been an incredible journey so far, but the details are not super important for this conversation, so just know that it has been an absolute blessing. As I've been down here, I've opened up my heart more to God. I've prayed and I've asked him to give me opportunities to be a blessing to others. I pray that every morning, and I challenge you to pray that as well if you want to feel God. But the kicker is, you have to listen and you have to act. As I've given my reputation, my body, and my encounters to God, he truly has worked through me. And I try to say that with as little pride as possible, but he has given me conversations that never would have happened. He's given me friends that I never expected I could have. Friends that are on the same journey while we learn, encourage, and move for God like all of the early disciples. I will warn you though, the blessing isn't always immediate. Sometimes you don't feel like you accomplished anything by sparking up a conversation. But like I said, God works in mysterious ways. I have a friend down here, and we'll call him Steve for the sake of the video. Less than a year ago, this kid was not doing well spiritually. He really had no relationship with Jesus at all, and he spent his time being a rap producer. He was doing well in that space, but after going through some situations that truly the only word acceptable to describe is insane, he gave his life to Christ and wanted to start all over. He still loves music and wants to pursue producing, but he's gonna have to start from scratch if he wants to get out of the secular music. Well, a few weeks ago, my friend, who we'll call Josh this time, and I went to a worship night at a church near where his parents live. It was an incredible experience. There's truly something so raw about standing on the floor with the band and just worshiping God. And two of the singers were these two girls who were very, very talented, and they were around our age. And right when the service ended, Josh came up to me and said, "I don't know why, but God is really telling me in this moment to go talk to those girls about Steve." He really didn't want to because of all the excuses that I gave earlier. But since it was still fresh on my mind, I told him, obedience that doesn't make sense. So we did it. We went up and we talked to those two girls who we found out were sisters. And to be obedient, Josh told them about Steve. He was just honest with them, telling them, "I don't know why, but God was telling me to just give you our friend Steve's number." And he didn't pressure them to text Steve if they didn't want to, but Owen just said yes to God and obeyed the small command. And you may think that something incredible has happened since then. The girls texted Steve, they wanted to give him a shot at producing, and they were totally impressed by him, or something like that. And unfortunately, that is not true yet. I only tell that story to give others encouragement. You may not get an answer right away. You may never get an answer. Or at least you may never get an answer in the way you were expecting. Again, Noah built a boat for 50 to 75 years before the flood came. God doesn't work within our limitations. His plan is greater. And I'd be lying if I said I wasn't expectant of God to work something through Josh's obedience. Who knows, maybe God touched something in the hearts of those girls that night. Maybe God will do something through it that I will never witness the fruits of. But I would also be lying if I said that night didn't encourage me. If I said that conversation, or at least seeing Josh's obedience, wasn't a huge blessing to me as well. And this is truly why you should take these nudges seriously. God works through people, and he wants to work through you if you are willing. He doesn't owe you clarity on the entire picture. He simply asks you to pick up a brush and start painting. With his guidance, you will look back at all the beautiful ways that God worked through your hands. God will give you that next step if you ask for it. And if you are willing to obey the smaller calls, he will trust you with the larger calls. The healing, the life-changing calls. And in Jesus' words himself, one who is faithful in a very little is also faithful in much. And one who is dishonest in a very little is also dishonest in much. If then you have not been faithful in the unrighteous wealth, who will entrust to you the true riches? For your own sake, wake up and please ask God for a small act of obedience. You will know when that moment comes. And yes, it's sometimes really awkward or really scary, but don't back down. No one has ever ruined their life by following Jesus too much.